Welcome to an episode on 5 things that every founder should do before starting.
You say something and our people are like, oh my God, I have that issue.
Most of our friends don't even know we've started a podcast.
The third tip, stress test your life. Probably should have stress test my life before starting this podcast, but I think I didn't know how much work it was going to be.
Yeah, it's also a real nice to have when you have like a group of people to actually launch to.
100%.
You're not just like launching to crickets.
Yeah.
They want to know that you know who else is out there and you know how you differentiate and you know how you're building a moat around yourself to protect yourself from those other competitors.
Be naive. Like, do your research, know what's out there, use all these tips that we said, but be naive because you need to be naive to push through. And otherwise, you're just like plummeted with fear.
If your plan is to launch something in 6 months, just work backwards. So like a little bit of planning, I think is also really valuable.
I think that's
and of course, we were going to have somewhat of an opposing hot take. I've had this experience personally recently because since selling my company, I've had a ton of ideas. Once you've done it once, you see everything as a problem and want to solve it. But I've had a ton of ideas that haven't really made it to light. So I thought we'd go through kind of my 5 tips that Natalie and I put together to figuring out how to validate your idea before you launch it into the world. So yeah, Natalie, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. Okay, so first, validate the problem, not the idea. So I think that before going in, you may have the idea, like, you know, our problem was we wanted to add resistance to a workout. When you're working out, like doing a yoga flow, you want to make it harder, let's add wrist weights. But instead of like validating the actual idea yet, I would actually validate the problem with people. So I would like take it to friends, like take it to Reddit. Hey, does anybody have this problem? Does anybody have a solution? And kind of just like make sure you have the best solution for that. But also you're making sure that other people have the same problem. And it might just help you get to a better idea. And so I think I would definitely validate the problem, not the idea.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Flume. Like I already had an idea and it changed so much in the kind of 12 months that I was talking about what problem I was solving for people. Going out, if I had just launched my original idea, like it would have sucked.
Yeah, and I think you also can look for repeated emotional spikes. So like you say something and our people are like, oh my God, I have that issue, you know, like Jazzy like me. Are they super frustrated? Are they passionate about it? Are they desperate for a solution? So looking for
they
those
better
emotional,
be desperate.
Like maybe you put it on Reddit and it blows up. Okay, you're going to go start that thing. Whatever.
Guys, I made Natalie a fucking Reddit fan. I've never heard her say the words Reddit so much in her life.
I've never got on. I don't have a login, but I'm going to use it in my lingo now.
If you can get like a willingness to pay from people, like really understand, not just that they think it's cool. Like I think talking to friends is how most people validate a problem, and it's not necessarily the most helpful because family will probably be like, don't leave your full-time job for this. And friends will
Family
be like,
always says
yeah,
that.
exactly. They'll be very risk adverse, and friends will be the opposite. They'll be like, this is so cool, follow your dreams, blah, blah, blah. But like speak to people you don't know and see if you can speak to them about, you know, how much money they would kind of put forward for your solution.
Yeah, or they might be like, I have that problem, but I don't really want to buy another thing to solve it. So then maybe that just changes your strategy.
Yeah. Okay, second tip is size the market. I think this is massively overlooked. And people just think, oh, I have a great kind of solution for this problem that I have. And no one really thinks about like, okay, but what is the real market opportunity size? And there's 2 ways to do this. There's like top down versus bottoms up. Top down essentially means you're doing analysis on what the full market size is. So say it's cleaning. You can very easily now go on ChatGPT and say, you know, do some research on how big the cleaning market is in that, or the fashion market. And that might come back as like 150 billion, and automatically you're like, okay, this is a very, very big market. And then bottoms up is doing it a little bit differently. That's really thinking about like, okay, what am I going to charge for this? How many customers do I have over an amount of time? Multiplying that together and seeing what your bottoms up opportunity is. So working it more into your actual financials and the actual way that you're thinking about the business.
And I think this is great just to do in general so you understand the business, but also it's like you're going to need this slide when you're pitching it, whether it's to your first hire or to a fundraiser. You're going to need that market size. And I mean, I even did this with the podcast. Like as we were deciding like the things we were going to talk about, how niche we were going to be, I'm like, ChatGPT, like how many people started a business in 2025, and I think like in 2023 it was 5 million people opened an LLC or something like that. So you can size the market for like anything you're working on, and you should. Within
this kind of sizing the market opportunity, you should do a unit economics sense check. I think that I've probably banged on about unit economics a lot. When I first started Flume, I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, yeah, eventually it'll make money, like it'll make sense. And what it ultimately means is that, is the CPA going to be less or more than the money you make, right? So like, is the cost per acquisition going to be $100 when you only maybe make $20? You're going to be in an $80 loss every single time. So make sure the unit economics make sense. And in some cases that's okay because it might be a subscription product and you're going to have 12 times repeat because it's every single month. So you make that money over time. You can spend a CPA of $100, but really validate, like, what do I think I need to spend on a customer? What will that make me in terms of a profit, and does that make sense, or am I at a loss every single time?
The third tip, stress test your life fit for this. So I think this is really relevant to me with all of these children, and probably should have stress test my life before starting this podcast, but I think I didn't know how much work it was going to be. Look at what your day-to-day looks like, and look at how many hours you can dedicate to this thing before you start the business. Because I'm not saying like put it off, because my whole thing is just start. But it might be like you need to like create some structure around when you're going to work on the business. Like let's say you have a true 9 to 5, like I did when we started Bala. Like we started it when we were on the sabbatical in Asia, but when we really like were ready to like start it, we were back in New York working full-time jobs, Max and I, at advertising agencies. Very demanding schedules, like, you know, more like 9 to 7. So I would bake in time in my morning, like knowing that I might be able to get some work in on my laptop while I'm working my day job, but I might not because things shit might hit the fan. I basically would bake in the hour, like I would like wake up early and be like, okay, I'm gonna have like 1 hour, 1.5 hours of interrupted time in the morning before I head off, so that I know I got progress done on Bala. And then also like stress test your life in terms of like finances. If you need to be putting like money into the business, like a little bit here and there, make sure your like life is covered. So Max and I worked in advertising for at least the first year of Bala, and then Max for 2 years of Bala. So like just so that his salary could like keep the lights on. He was still working on Bala full time, but it's like he paid for our apartment, our bills, and our car and all of that, so that we were able to put any extra side cash into the business.
I think there's also a like support system stress test. Like, what's your backup? Like, are you moving back home? I know some people do that. Are you moving in with your partner? And also like, if you do have a partner, do they understand the implications of this? Like, make sure there's open communication about the fact that there's going to be a salary decrease if you're giving up a job, or there's going to be like, instead of nights and weekends being spent hanging out, like you're going to start working on something, you know? So like really make sure you have those conversations, so you're not then also like going through a breakup or a divorce whilst first starting a company, which would just add an extra amount of stress. Obviously.
We actually moved in, I forgot about this, but we moved in with Max's parents for like 2 months in Connecticut before we moved back to LA while working on Bala, so that we could like save that that money on rent, you know, like that's significant savings on living in a New York apartment. So
I mean, everything is savings on a New York apartment.
Exactly.
Okay, tip number 4, run a minimum effort test. So this is also known as an MVP, which is like a minimum viable product. And I did this with Flume. Like when I even actually before I had the idea, I just put a landing page up that was like, be the first to know, and it gathered emails. And then I started
How'd you gather
Instagram.
emails?
I started an Instagram, and I would push, and I'd be like, I'm building something. If you want to be the first person to test it, sign up here.
That would play really well now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, 10 years ago, that was like less of a thing. Like that would play really
Yeah,
well.
now everybody just throws their email around because it's absolutely meaningless.
Yeah.
Back then it was like, why do you need my email? I think it's important to try to get something out there early. Also with Stripe, like you can sign up for Stripe and you can like do single orders. You could do that integrated to Instagram. See what you can sell. See if people are willing to give you their time, willing to give you their email and phone number, like I said, and best case, willing to give you money before you go all in. I think this is very relevant as well for like a CPG product where you're like committing to buying a number up front. Kickstarter is the perfect example of like building an MVP, right? Like you're building a video around like not a fake product, but literally like your only single one. And you're like, do people want this? Will you pay for it? And I think you can do that without going on Kickstarter, but just try to build your own mechanism. If it's a software product, like build the original, like the first version of the app that has just like one user flow and see if people use it. There's really easy ways now through just like designing through Figma and then turning it into a prototype. Like I think it's much easier to get an MVP out there and kind of test if this is something that people want.
Yeah, and people are, you know, it's like really scary to put something out there that's not perfect, but like you don't have to be scared of that anymore. People have no attention spans.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers the first few years of Bala at all.
Totally.
You know, like anything that we did didn't really matter.
Most of our friends don't even know we've started a podcast.
Literally,
We
like
still
my
have to
best
bang on
friend
about
from
it.
Texas was like, wait, you have a podcast last week? It's crazy. So no one knows, and they're not paying as much attention as you think. So putting it out there is like definitely something you should do. We did a Kickstarter. You could probably Google Kickstarter Bala Bangles and be like, how is this the same brand? It looks so different and cheesy and bad. But a lot of brands that you know and love and that are huge were on Kickstarter. I think we riffed some on a recent podcast, but like Peloton was one, Allbirds. Like there's just a lot of like professional huge brands that started with like
that you would never think started that way. Yeah.
So I think definitely put an MVP out there, and people like to build with you. I think that's why it's like put it on social.
Yeah, those also end up becoming some of your best customers, I find. Like when they're there from the very beginning, there's a sense of loyalty that they were like part of the early days.
Yeah.
And if you ever do want to fundraise and you've built without a product like a user base or an email base or phone numbers, and you can walk in and say like, I already have 2,000 users who are interested in this, even though that's a small number, like it shows that you're working to validate something. You're not just like, oh yeah, this is the best idea ever because I want it.
We actually started, I think everyone should do this, like starting an Instagram page. We started it, I think, a year before we even launched on Shopify. And obviously we didn't have content. We didn't have the product yet. So we weren't even posting like sketches or anything like that. I didn't know to do that. We were literally just like reposting like mood, swipe, like all of that shit. And I mean, that's how Sporty and Rich started too, like from like more like a mood board Insta. So I think like start the socials.
Yeah, it's also a real nice to have when you have like a group of people to actually launch to.
100%.
You're not just like launching to crickets.
Yeah. Okay, so the fifth and final tip is to pressure check the competition. I think it's okay to launch with healthy competition already. You just, you know, differentiate by either product or positioning or marketing. But it's good to know what's out there. So you want to make sure there's like no, if it's a CPG brand, like no patents pending, or if it's like a cookie dough brand, like why is yours different? You want to pressure check, see what's going on out there. Are there big other players in the space? Are there small other players in the space? I mean, we're riffing ideas all the time. And when I think of something, I'm like, oh, that exists. When we Google it, I'm like, but I didn't know about it. So it means there's enough room. If you don't know about it, then you potentially could be a competitor in the brand. So I don't think it means like, don't do it, but know what's out there.
I think you can also like do a pretty quick competitor analysis, like understand, which generally means like, you know, there's two lines that cross each other, and it could be like a price point, it could be premium, like there's different things you're comparing it to, but you really understand your moat and your differentiation against those other brands. So like, and investors will ask for this. We might, if you guys are interested, let us know in the comments. Do an episode on kind of the 10 to 12 pages you should have an investor deck, but this is definitely one of them. And they want to know that you know who else is out there and you know how you differentiate and you know that how you're building a moat around yourself to protect yourself from those other competitors. So there's no belief in our day and age that there are no competitors, right? That's very common. That's very healthy. But knowing who they are and what they do differently and how you're going to do it better is incredibly important to building a strong product and idea.
The doing it better is exactly it. It's like even the affiliate platforms, there's so many, but I won't like name names, but basically all of a sudden there's like one that just does it way better and everyone drops from the other one. Like there's always room to open something to launch something that's similar and just doing it better.
Yeah. Shout out to Shop My, sponsor us.
How'd you know? Okay, so should we say each of our hot take on maybe this theme, which is something
what
about
every founder should do before starting?
Yeah, or just like, what should you do before starting? I have one. I'll start.
Go.
My hot take is be naive. Like, do your research, know what's out there, use all these tips that we said, but be naive because you need to be naive to push through. And otherwise, you're just like plummeted with fear. I'm still naive about things. And I think that's what keeps me like pushing further and launching things and trying things.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like you can come up with 100 reasons why you shouldn't do something. Especially everyone always thinks like once you've had one company, like you immediately are going to do another. But like I have so much fear about now knowing too much, you know, like, oh, this is too heavy to ship or this is going to take too long to produce. Like suddenly like all the things that were issues before, whilst you now know that they're issues, which is a benefit, you also have complete fear about them. So very good hot take. My hot take is kind of, whilst I agree with yours, I also think that like naivety is super important into launching, but people need to do more planning. I think that there's a lack of like research and planning sometimes that goes into starting a company. And it's good to have a plan, even if you don't stay to it. You know, it's just good to know where you want to end up so that you can like visualize it and you can create steps. Otherwise, I think that people go like, one of my biggest questions that I'm ever asked is like, how did you launch? You know, like it's a really hard thing to just figure out like, okay, well, if your plan is to launch something in 6 months, just work backwards. So like a little bit of planning, I think is also really valuable.
I think that's
and legit. Of course, we were going to have somewhat of an opposing hot take.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.